The ancient Greeks feared a creature that lived in the dark and stole children in the night. The ancient Chinese feared a creature that lived in the dark and stole children in the night. The Mesopotamians feared a creature that lived in the dark and stole children in the night. These civilizations never met. They shared no language, no trade routes, no contact of any kind, and they were all afraid of the exact same thing. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And once you start looking for it, it's everywhere. Every culture that has ever existed on this planet built stories around darkness. Not metaphorical darkness, literal darkness, the hours between sunset and dawn. In ancient Egypt, the sun god Ra had to fight his way through the underworld every single night just to rise again in the morning. If he failed, the sun would never come back. The Aztecs believed the sun required constant human blood to survive the night and return each morning. The Norse believed that one day the darkness would finally win. They called it Ragnarok, the end of everything. These are not similar stories. These are the same story told by people who had no way of knowing each other existed. So why? Go back far enough and the answer becomes obvious. For the vast majority of human existence, darkness genuinely was trying to kill you. Our eyes are almost useless in real darkness. Not the kind of darkness you experience when you turn off your bedroom light and the street lamps still glow through the curtains. Real darkness, the kind that existed every night for 300,000 years before electricity. The kind where you could not see your hand in front of your face. The predators that hunted us could. Leopards, hyenas, lions. Their eyes are built for low light in a way ours simply are not. Every single night of human existence for hundreds of thousands of years, the darkness was full of things that could see you when you couldn't see them. The humans who were relaxed about that died. The ones who were terrified of it survived, and their terror got passed down to every generation that followed. You are not afraid of the dark because you're irrational. You're afraid of the dark because every single ancestor you have ever had who wasn't afraid of it got eaten. But that explains fear of darkness. It doesn't explain why every culture independently invented almost identical monsters to put inside it. Here's what's strange. Across cultures that had zero contact with each other, certain monster types appear again and again with barely any variation. The creature that comes at night and sits on your chest while you sleep, pressing the air out of you, appears in ancient Rome as the incubus, in Norse culture as the mare, in Chinese folklore as the ghost that crushes, in West African tradition, in Japanese mythology, in Newfoundland fishing villages, in the mountains of Ethiopia. Same creature, same behavior, same feeling, different name, same nightmare. The creature that lures people to water and drags them under appears in ancient Greece as naiads, in Scotland as the Kelpie, in West Africa as Mamiwada, in Japan as the Kappa, in Slavic folklore as the Rusalka, in South American indigenous traditions, across every continent, every culture, every era. Something lives in the water and it wants to pull you down. The creature that shapeshifts and wears the face of someone you trust appears in Native American legends, in African folklore, in European mythology, in ancient Mesopotamian texts. Something that looks human but isn't. Something wearing a face it borrowed. These aren't borrowed stories. These cultures were separated by oceans and millennia. They built these creatures independently, which means something generated the same fear in all of them. Sleep paralysis is a medical condition where you wake up, but your body is still chemically paralyzed from sleep. You are conscious. You cannot move. And a significant percentage of people who experience it report the same thing. A presence in the room. A figure in the corner. Something sitting on their chest. The overwhelming sensation of being watched by something that means them harm. This happens in every country on Earth. It always has. And before anyone understood the neuroscience behind it, every culture that experienced it did the same thing. They built a story around it. They gave the presence a name and a shape and a set of rules for how to keep it away. The incubus, the mare, the ghost that crushes. They are all the same neurological event wearing different cultural clothing. Your brain, in that half-woken, paralyzed state, generates a threat. It has to. Waking up unable to move is one of the most dangerous situations a human body can find itself in. So the threat detection system fires, creates a presence, generates dread, and people across thousands of years and thousands of miles woke up from the same experience and drew the same monster. Then there's water. Statistically, drowning has been one of the leading causes of death in every human civilization that has ever existed near water. Which is all of them, because all of them settled near water. Children especially. Rivers, lakes, coastlines. They were simultaneously the source of life and the most reliably deadly thing in any ancient settlement. The water monster isn't a mystery. The water monster is a parenting tool. Something in the water will pull you under if you go too close to the edge. Don't go near the water alone. Don't go near the water at night. The monster enforces the rule that keeps children alive. Cultures that told that story lost fewer children to drowning. They survived better. They passed the story down. The story became ancient before anyone thought to question where it came from. The shapeshifter is different. And this one goes somewhere darker. The thing that wears a human face but isn't human taps into something more complicated than predator fear or drowning statistics. It taps into the most dangerous threat a social animal ever faces. Not the lion in the grass. The betrayer inside the group. For most of human history, being expelled from your group was a death sentence. You could not survive alone. Which means the most dangerous thing in your world wasn't a predator. The most dangerous thing was a member of your own group who was working against it. The person who seemed normal but wasn't, who smiled at you but meant you harm, who wore the face of a friend and carried the intentions of an enemy. The shapeshifter monster is ancient cultures trying to process a threat that has no physical form. You can't see betrayal coming. You can't smell it or hear it. It looks exactly like the person standing next to you. So cultures built a monster that behaved the same way. Something that looks human. Something that gets close. Something that you only realize too late isn't what it appeared to be. There is one more fear that appears in every culture without exception. And it might be the most revealing of all. The dead coming back. Every single human civilization that has ever existed has built elaborate systems around keeping the dead where they belong. The Egyptians spent entire lifetimes and unimaginable resources building tombs designed to manage the dead. The Romans had the Lemuria festival, dedicated entirely to appeasing restless spirits. The Chinese have Ghost Month. The ancient Mesopotamians feared ghosts above almost everything else. The Celts built their entire calendar around the night when the boundary between the living and dead grew thin. Every culture, every continent, every era, the same terror. And underneath all of it is the same question that no human being in history has ever been able to answer. What actually happens after you die? Nobody has ever come back to explain it, and that absence of an answer, that complete and total darkness on the other side of the most certain event in every human life, generated the same dread in every mind that ever confronted it. The dead coming back in these stories are almost never peaceful. They come back wrong. They come back hungry. They come back for something they didn't finish. Because the alternative, that death is simply the end, that the people you loved are simply gone, was too much for any culture to accept without a story around it. So here is what all of it adds up to. Every ancient culture feared the same things because every ancient culture faced the same things. The same darkness, the same water, the same social betrayal, the same paralyzed waking nightmare, the same unanswerable question waiting at the end of every human life. The monsters were never really about monsters. They were about the actual dangers of being alive, dressed up in claws and shadows because that's how the human mind has always processed what it cannot explain. The darkness outside your window used to be full of things that could kill you. The water at the edge of the village took children every summer. The person sitting next to you at the fire could turn on you without warning. And one day you would die, and nobody could tell you what came next. Every culture that ever existed looked at those same 4 facts and built the same 4 monsters. Because the monsters were always real, just not in the way anyone told the story.